Okay, so let's start. I don't think I need to introduce Amish to you guys based on the way you just welcomed him right now. But it's not loud enough?
I guess.
I'll try and pin
closer.
it.
Yeah, it's too cold. Yeah.
Is that better? Can you hear me now? Okay, wonderful. So, Amish Tripathi wanted to be a historian. He became a banker and somehow ended up as the best-selling novelist India has ever seen. So tell us how this happened.
The history bit or the writing bit?
All of it, yeah.
Oh,
they want to know everything.
Okay, that'll take a long time. I've lived nearly 39 years. It's a long time. Yes, you're right. Mobile phonam nidhanam. It's in the Sanskrit scriptures. Mobile phones are banned. Yes, I did want to be a historian. When I was young, I was always very passionate about that subject. But in the India that I was growing up in, history was not a wise career option. As people would joke and say, "Beta, history to theek hai, kaam kya karoge?" So I did the logical, pragmatic thing. I graduated in science, in mathematics, and then I did an MBA from Calcutta, and I worked in banking for 14 years. And I can't say I had a passion for history. I didn't have, passion for writing. Passion for writing. Yeah. I didn't have one creative bone in my body. I'd written absolutely no fiction before the Immortals of Meluha, not even a short story in school, absolutely nothing. I was a completely left-brained, quantitative kind of guy.
So where did this come from? Where it just appeared from where?
Good question. See, because most of the friends who know me from college or, most of them are quite stunned that, Sala, Amish ne kitab kaise likh diya? Because I had written some poetry, but that's all in college. That was terrible. It was very bad poetry. And my wife, who's out here, and my son Neil, my wife at that time, she was my girlfriend. This was 20 years ago. Yeah, we've grown up together basically. And most of my poems were for her. She was the only person who liked my poems. No one else liked them.
I think we're going to have to ask her.
Hey, you like my poems, right?
Yeah. She did. She said yes.
She's a good wife.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm as stunned as anyone else that I've actually written some books. I'm even more stunned that some people actually like them. The books began as a pure philosophical thesis, actually, as an exploration into the nature of evil, an answer to that question, what is evil? And some of that philosophy is based on my understanding of the Upanishads, particularly the Isha and the Katha Upanishad, but all the Upanishads. And some of it my own thoughts. And so it began as a pure philosophical thesis, actually, the Shiva trilogy, which got converted into an adventure.
Well, it was a great combination. So tell us, do you come from a religious family, and are you personally religious yourself?
Yes, I do come from a very religious family. My grandfather was a Pandit in Banaras and a teacher at Banaras Hindu University. He used to teach mathematics and physics. He had also done a master's in Sanskrit. And both my parents are very religious, so that's the atmosphere I grew up in. And they were also very liberal, which is not a contradiction in traditional India, actually.
And it's sad that it's become something that people think should be a contradiction.
No, in fact, I think for a vast majority of Indians, it's still not a contradiction.
It is not, I agree.
Religiosity and liberalism go hand in hand in India. There's a very tiny minority of religious extremists in India. Frankly, there's a very tiny minority of secular extremists also in India who are equally idiotic, in my mind. Majority of us Indians are religious and liberal, and I grew up in that kind of atmosphere. So we were encouraged to question, we were encouraged to explore, and that's how I know much of what I know of our mythology and our scriptures and our philosophies. I did turn into an atheist in the early 90s for nearly 10, 12 years.
Say it again so everyone can hear you.
No, I did.
Amish Tripathi was an atheist.
I was.
He just said it.
For 10, 12 years. This was.
How did you become an atheist?
This was in the early 90s. We were in college at that time, and we had a big gang, some 20 of us, and I was in Mumbai, my home, And Mumbai sadly passed through a phase of insanity in the early 90s. We were having repeated communal riots, one community attacking another, then another community attacking back. There were bomb blasts, there were riots, and our entire gang, all of us, we started blaming religion for it. Our gang was, majority of us were Hindus. It's a reflection of the country. But we also had Muslims, Christians, Parsis. My wife is half Parsi. And our gang, we started blaming religion for these fights. My father, like I said, he's a very devout man. So he used to try and tell me that if you find religious extremists creating chaos, it's even more important that we religious liberals stand up and speak even more loudly. But I was a teenager. I didn't really understand his words at that time, and I understand it now. I returned to faith with.
So how did you return?
Books.
So you grew up in a religious family, you became an atheist, and then you went back to the faith.
To faith, yes.
To faith. And tell us, how did that happen?
There's a bright flash of light, and I suddenly just woke up and. No, okay. To be honest, it happened slowly. As I wrote more and more of my books, I found myself drawn back to faith. And no disrespect to any other god, but if for someone like me who's naturally a rebel, I'm naturally, frankly, slightly anti-elitist, anti the authorities. It's just the way I am. So for someone like me, Lord Shiva is a very, and no disrespect to any other god, but he is in a way the perfect god to pull someone like me back to faith, because he is the classical rebel god. He's a rule breaker. He treats his wife with love and respect. Even in his traditional, in the traditional way, Lord Shiva and Parvati ji are shown. They sit shoulder to shoulder as equals. He holds the children on his lap many times. He dances, he sings, he smokes marijuana.
What's not to like? Yeah.
So I guess he kind of pulled me back to faith. And today I understand what my father used to tell me, that there is beauty and ugliness in every single religion, like in every single part of life. And it's up to us, what do we want to see?
To find the beauty in
exactly. And as my father has in his puja room, similarly in my puja room at home, I have an idol of Lord Shiva, whom I worship every morning. But I also have idols of other Hindu gods, of Lord Ram, of Krishna ji, of Durga Ma, of Kali Ma, and also of symbols of other religions. So I have a picture of the Muslim Kaaba, of Jesus Christ, of Mother Mary, of Zarathustra ji, the Zoroastrian prophet, of Gautam Buddha, of Guru Nanak ji, and I worship all of them every morning. There is something to be learned from every religion. I strongly believe that.
I find this particular thing very interesting because it's amazing that. And tell us something about the inspiration you draw from other religious traditions, like you say, but this is a wonderful thing about you, and I think a lot of people would agree that everyone draws inspiration from different religious traditions.
There is something to be learned from every religion, and I always say that, in fact, I am not doing anything new actually. I am following the Indian tradition. Right here in Rajasthan actually, there is a sect of Muslims called the Manganyar Muslims. I'm sure some of you have heard of them. They are devout Muslims. They pray 5 times a day. And they dress, they look like Muslims. The vocation that they have is that they sing devotional ballads, and ballads devoted to Lord Ram. And you should see one of their performances. It brings tears to your eyes, because before they begin, they start with a prayer to Lord Ram. And they're Muslims, and they don't think they're doing anything wrong. And those of us in the audience who watch them, we don't think they're doing anything wrong. In Mumbai, there's a Mount Mary Church, which is a Christian church. Many of the people who visit the church are Hindus and Muslims. My wife and I, we also visit that church. And we go and pray in our own way. The Christians don't get offended that we are praying in our own way. We don't think we are doing anything wrong. Right here, close to Jaipur, is Ajmer Sharif,
yes.
Which is the tomb of a Muslim Sufi saint. Majority of the people who visit there are Hindus. And this is the Indian way. So I always say that I am actually being more Indian by respecting all religions.
I think there's something to be learned, and I wish there were more people like you in India.
There are. I'm telling you, a vast majority of us are religious and liberal. The problem is we keep silent. We let the fringe elements of religious extremists and secular extremists dominate the narrative. They are both idiots, and we religious liberals need to speak more loudly. The secular extremists look down on us religious people like we are some.
That's the message everyone in this audience should be taking away from today.
The secular extremists look down on us religious people like we are apparently anti-scientific idiots, which is nonsense. And the religious extremists think that pride in their religion means that they have to hate another religion, which is equal nonsense.
Absolutely.
But fortunately, a vast majority of Indians don't think this way, which is why we are a stable country.
Absolutely. Well, that's actually very inspiring. So now tell us a little bit about your books. So you've written 3 books. You've written The Immortals of Meluha, Secret of the Nagas, and Oath of the Vayuputras. Did you always conceive of this as a trilogy, even though this came to you in a blinding flash of light?
Yeah, you know, in my mind, they are not actually 3 independent books. It's one continuous story. It's just been divided into 3 for convenience, because you can't release a 2,000-page book. It's a human rights violation. The only choice that I had was way to break up the story into 3 books. But actually, it's a continuous story. You can't read book 2 without reading book 1. It won't really make sense. It's not like the Ibis trilogy, for example. You can read the second book before reading the first book. It'll still make sense. In fact, actually, that's how I read it. So I knew Behram's story before Diti's story. But it makes sense. You don't have to follow it. But in my book series, you have to read it in order.
In order.
Yeah.
And Amish's books are going to be made into a film, which Karan Johar is going to be producing.
Yes.
So is it all going to be together in and if you read the paper this morning, you will. There's something happening in Hollywood as well.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about it, or is it a secret?
I'm sorry, I can't speak too much about it. Sorry, so sorry.
Well, you heard it here first.
But yes, a deal has been done. It'll be announced.
Well, let's congratulate Amish on his Hollywood deal. And what are you working on next?
I am working on I've started work on a book series. It is going to be in the history mythology space. I think that's about it. Listen, my publisher, like, he's put this ironclad contract on me. Like, I'm not allowed to speak more.
So
sorry.
What I thought I'd do is I'll ask you one last question, and I know the audience is here to speak to Amish, so we want to sort of invite you into the conversation, and we'll be opening it up for questions very soon. But just before we do that, do you have any advice for aspiring authors in our audience today?
Before that advice, is it possible to get anything slightly warm? My throat's about to collapse. Sorry, I'm from Mumbai. Yeah, I'm used to, 2 seasons, hot and hotter.
Me also.
Advice for writers. I'd say 3 things primarily. Firstly, when you write, you have to write with the purity of your heart. You have to care 2 hoots about anyone else's opinion. And when you write, you must realize that you have to write for yourself. You're writing because a blessing has come to you, and that book serves a purpose for your soul. So care 2 hoots about editors, publishers, critics, and frankly even readers. Write only for yourself. That's the first rule. The second rule is there is this practical minor problem of money. Unless you're lucky to be born rich and daddy's left a lot of dosh for you, regrettably not in our case. So you actually have to work for a living. And my suggestion is, look, if your aim is to make money, trust me, there are far easier routes. Okay, there are a few lucky people who can make money out of writing, but a vast majority do not. So have a job on the side, because then you don't have to compromise on your book to pay your bills at the end of the month. I had a job on the side. It was an exciting banking job. No, seriously. Okay.
He is serious.
Hey, listen, most bankers go skipping and whistling, to the office. Now, at least
no one believes you.
Okay, they skip and whistle when the salary comes in. Okay, the benefit of a banking job is that you have or any job, is that you have something which is paying the bills. Therefore, you don't have to compromise on your writing. My first book, it was rejected by every publisher that it was sent to, but
Not
there
me,
was
but-
one editor who was willing to publish it. But he wanted some changes in the book. He told me that there's too much gyan in your books, philosophical gyan. So
Famous last
yeah,
words.
so he told me that it's a good fast-paced story, but this gyan is unnecessary. If you drop this, he'd be willing. He told me that if I drop this, he'd be willing to publish the book. Now, if I was dependent on the book to pay my bills, I don't know, I may have been forced to compromise. But because I didn't need the book to pay my bills, I could tell him to get lost, which was good, because
And liberating.
because if the book had succeeded in that way, I would have still been desperately unhappy, because it wouldn't have come out the way I wanted it to come out. So the second advice is always have a job on the side, so that you don't have to compromise on your writing. Either have a rich daddy or have a job, so that you don't have to compromise on your writing. The third thing is the minor problem of pragmatism. Once you finish the book, you have to be a practical guy and figure out how do you sell this thing. Okay, you have to invest your mind space and time into marketing. A good book doesn't sell itself. That's a fallacy. I'm a voracious reader. I can give you a long list of books which should have been bestsellers, but they're not, because no one marketed it. How the hell will you buy a book if you haven't heard of it? So you have to invest your time and effort in marketing. There are authors I know who refuse to go for book events because they think, oh, we are authors. I think that's unethical. If your publisher is investing money in your book, the least you can do is support the publisher. So
very happy to hear
the third thing is, once you finished your book, you have to be practical and pragmatic and spend time and effort in marketing. So these are the 3 rules.
So I hope everyone was taking notes. So now we're going to open it up for questions and invite you into the conversation. So there's this lady over here who was the first to raise her hand, so I'm going to ask her to go first. And just say your name and introduce
Good morning,
yourself.
sir. I'm Vishakha.
Amish, yeah, not sir.
Okay, Amish. Amish, you've been, a lot of people call you the Dan Brown of India, since you've mixed up mythology, fact and fiction together.
Okay.
So, what are your comments on that?
I think
One follow-up.
that's probably too kind. I think the only commonality between Dan Brown and him is he's brown, I'm brown skinned. But I think he writes very well. I think the research that he does in his books is fantastic. I'm not sure I'm of that order, but thank you so much. Thank you so much.
There's
We have a
Open.
question here at the
Yeah.
back.
Hi, this is Shravan this side.
Sorry, Shravan.
Yeah.
Shravan. Hi, Shravan.
Hi. Many of my friends have been inspired by your books, and it's a rage across all the engineering colleges that I've been in.
No, thank you.
And they actually refer to their marijuana time as the shifty time. Many of them.
As the what time?
Shifty time.
The shifty time.
Shifty.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
like.
Oh, Shivji time. sorry.
Shivji time. Okay.
Yeah. So my question to you is, have you tried it?
I think before he
I'm-
says anything, I have to say you're having a Bill Clinton moment here.
No, look,
I didn't inhale.
I'm a devoted Shiva worshipper, and in one second, let me clarify. On Mahashivratri nights, all of us Shiva worshippers, we stay up all night. It's a tradition. We stay up all night. We pray, we dance, we sing, and yes, we smoke up or drink bhang as well. I am not suggesting that you guys should do that. It's not a good habit. But I do want to say that, I'm speaking seriously now. Marijuana has sadly just got a lot of bad press. It's actually less harmful for you than alcohol and nicotine. I've been, little bird has told me there are apparently some parties tonight, and they're going to be serving alcohol at those parties. Okay, so marijuana is actually less harmful for you than alcohol, even. Of course, it's less harmful than nicotine. It's in India, actually, it was legally available till a few decades ago. There was an international movement driven by the US, actually, which forced practically all countries to ban the marijuana, and now the US is actually reversing that ban in a few states. In India, actually, many decades ago, the government would actually sell marijuana in shops.
They still do, by
Yeah,
the way. It's
and in
called
some-
the Sarkari
yeah.
Bhang ki
Now,
dukaan.
the point I'm trying to make now,
You
wait,
think I'm joking, but
having
I'm
said
not.
all this, having said all this, every single intoxicant, be it alcohol, nicotine, marijuana, they're not good for you. That's the first rule. And a philosophical rule in life is that if you're not able to handle it, don't do it. Okay, and once a year is okay. More than that is not. So the idea is not to lose a hold on yourself. I am not recommending marijuana as a way of life. It's not good for you. Okay, try spirituality. It gives you a much better, longer lasting high. Okay? No, seriously. Yeah?
बेटा मैं आपसे एक प्रश्न करना चाहती हूँ
हाँ नमस्ते.
कि आपकी जो लेखनी है
जी.
उसमें क्या आपके बचपन की जो दादी नानी कहानियाँ सुनाती थी आपको माइथोलॉजी के ऊपर
जी.
उसका कुछ असर
नहीं, बहुत असर रहा है. जैसा मैंने कहा था, मेरे बाबा जो थे वो पंडित थे बनारस में, और हमें सिर्फ कहानियाँ नहीं, वो फ़लसफ़े के बात भी करते थे. हम लोग उपनिषद के बारे में बात करते थे, सिर्फ पौराणिक कथाएं नहीं. और बाबा हरदम कहते थे कि भाई कहानी इतनी महत्वपूर्ण नहीं है, महत्वपूर्ण ये है कि कहानी के पीछे फ़लसफ़ा क्या है. क्योंकि कहानी एक ज़रिया है फ़लसफ़े तक पहुंचने का. फ़लसफ़ा क्या है कि वो आपको जीने का तरीका सिखाता है. तो मेन चीज़ वो है, और उसे भूलना नहीं चाहिए. कहानी तो अलग अलग हो सकते हैं. आप मिथोलॉजी जो शब्द है, इसका अगर आप रूट ढूंढेंगे तो इसका एक ग्रीक शब्द है मीथोस. और मेरी पत्नी और मैं, हम लोग ग्रीस गए थे कई साल पहले. एक ग्रीक महिला से हम लोग मिले थे, और मैंने उससे पूछा था कि भाई अंग्रेज़ी में कि भाई ये मीथोस का मतलब क्या है, क्योंकि डिक्शनरी में तो कुछ और, शब्दकोश में कुछ और ही मतलब लिखा हुआ है. तो उसने बताया कि ग्रीक लोगों के मुताबिक मीथोस इज़ दैट विच हाइड्स द ट्रूथ, जो सत्य को छिपाता है. और आपका आपका मिशन कह सकते हैं, मिशन ये है कि भाई वो सत्य को आप ढूंढ निकालें. तो कहानी में लॉस्ट नहीं हो जाना चाहिए, कहानी में घूम जाना नहीं चाहिए. इम्पॉर्टेंट बात यह है कि फ़लसफ़े को आप ढूंढ निकालें.
Hello, I am Apurva.
Hi,
and,
Apurva.
I have this question for you. You were mixing mythology with the reality. So, and you know the Indian mindset that we do not accept mythology in any different way. So, were you ever facing any fear of controversy or any other fear? Did you ever face?
You know, I'm not being facetious when I say this, but I mean it from the bottom of my heart. That if you want to write a book like this, there isn't a better country than India to do it. The reason for this is that if you actually look in our past, there are so many interpretations of mythology that you lose count of it. The version of the Ramayana that's most popular in North India, Maharashtra northwards, is the Ramcharitmanas. And the reason why people know that version is because in the 1980s there was a television serial made by a gentleman called Ramanand Sagar, and the source material that he used for his Ramayana television serial was the Ramcharitmanas. But the Ramcharitmanas is actually a 16th century modernization of the original Valmiki Ramayana. Now we know Sita ji as a docile, submissive goddess. If you read the original Valmiki Ramayana, she's a far stronger character. Okay.
Tell us a little more about her as a character in
there are so many versions of the. Actually, if you want to see the versions of the Ramayana where you have Sita ji as a stronger character, there's a version of the Ramayana called the Adbhut Ramayana, which was written in the 12th century, which means 400 years before the Ramcharitmanas, the version that all of you know. You guys call it the Ramayana, but the Ramayana that you know is actually the Ramcharitmanas. In the Adbhut Ramayana, it wasn't Lord Ram who killed Ravan. It was Sita ji who killed Ravan when she took her true form as Ma Kali. Okay, there are nearly 300 versions of the Ramayana. Some say maybe thousands of versions of the Ramayana, and in many of them the stories are vastly different, and none of them cause any controversy. And this is just the Ramayana. If you look at the Mahabharata, there are so many different interpretations of the Mahabharata. If you read the Purans, for example, we are all aware that there are 18 Mahapurans. Depending on how you count, you can say there are 19 Mahapurans as well, because there's some who believe that even Vayu Puran is one of the Mahapurans. In the Mahapurans, you will find contradictions between different Purans. So, for example, the birth of Lord Kartik is described differently in the Shiv Puran and is described differently in the Skanda Puran. Now, which version is right? I don't know. Okay, it doesn't matter. There's this lovely line in the Rig Veda from the Asya Vamasya hymn, which says, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. Truth is one, but the wise men speak it as many. Right? All of us have a right. All of us have a right to our own interpretation, and as long as you do it with devotion and respect, there is no reason for any controversy. And this is not idle talk. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. My books have sold a reasonable number till now. I haven't faced one controversy. And more often than not, I am telling you, the sad truth is in India, controversies are created, sadly. There are authors who idiotically go around creating controversy in the stupid hope that it will sell their books. Even my book, the first book, there was a PR agent who advised me that, look, let's create some controversy, that's what will sell the book. And my wife and I were aghast when he gave us that advice. Because he said, boss, all you need is some 10 people. We were like, what? They said, no, it's about the angle of the camera. If the TV camera is at a low angle, 10 people seem like a lot. They can just be burning your books. I'm like, and this is sadly what happens. Controversies are created. There are, maybe 1 or 2% cases where controversies happen genuinely, but in vast majority of cases, they don't. A vast majority of Indians are liberal enough to respect a different point of view, as long as you do it with devotion and respect.
It's a question from the back.
Hi, my name is Anjali.
Hi, Anjali.
I wanted to ask you said that you were an atheist when you started writing book and became a religious again. So why chose Lord Shiva and mythology when you were an atheist?
I think the real answer is, I didn't really choose him. He chose me, because I didn't even want to be a writer. And if you think about it, it's a little logical, because if I wanted to write an adventure to explain a philosophy on evil, then who better to be the hero than the destroyer of evil himself, Lord Shiva? So it's kind of natural that he emerged as the hero. And like I said earlier, I mean, no disrespect to any other god, I just find him a very attractive god. He genuinely is, very cool.
Yeah.
Hi.
Oh, sorry, first you and then we go to the back.
Good morning, Amish. My name is Audita.
Hi, Audita.
My question to you is that you have made many. I'm a very huge fan of your trilogy, firstly. And secondly, I would like to ask that you've made huge changes in your book, as in literally, may I use the word disrupting the real how mythology is. So, Amish, where do you think you draw the line to, no, I can't go beyond that, I can't change that, because I'm a myth freak, I call myself a myth freak. So, myth freaks around the world use the term when they say that, there's a certain boundary line when you're changing myths to suit your books. So, where do you think you draw the line there?
Okay, the first thing, and which is what I spoke about, earlier, is that in India the real question is, what is the real myth? Because there are so many versions. Like, let me give you another example. We are told in the Ramayana that Lord Ram worshipped Lord Shiva at Rameshwaram, right? Which means Lord Ram came after Lord Shiva. And he worshipped, and it is mentioned to us that he worshipped Lord Shiva and Parvati ji. Which means what? That Sati ji had died and she had reincarnated herself as Parvati ji. Correct? That's what we know. Now, there's another myth that Shiv ji and Sati, it's very specific. Shiv ji and Sati ji were coming out of Agastya Muni's ashram. Okay? And they ran into Lord Ram, who was searching for Sita ji at that point of time, which means Sita ji had been kidnapped already. And he was searching for her at that point of time. And this myth is very specific. It doesn't say Shiv ji and Parvati ji, it says Shiv ji and Sati ji. Okay? And Sati ji didn't recognize Lord Ram as Lord Vishnu's avatar, or as the Americans go, avatar. Now this myth is in contradiction with the earlier myth. Now, what is the real myth? And once again, I come back to that Vedic line. How does it matter? Now, when I write the book, how do I work? I know it might sound strange, but I don't set the boundaries, he sets the boundaries, because I don't create the story. I can't explain where it comes from. Because I had written absolutely no fiction before the Immortals of Meluha. I don't have one creative bone in my body. I open the laptop and it's almost like I'm given the privilege of entering another universe and recording what I see. And I don't have any control over the characters of that universe. There was a point of time when I was trying to control the story at the beginning. There was this one particular character whose fate I was very unhappy with, and I desperately wanted to change it. Whatever I was doing wasn't working. It was seeming like a force fit, and I'd actually stopped writing. And it was my wife Preeti who helped me out. She told me that you're approaching it like, in a typical stupid MBA style. You think you control the story. You don't. You're only a witness in a parallel universe. So she told me this line that, and I love this line. I've quoted it I think 1,000 times. That don't approach the story with the arrogance of a creator. Approach it instead with the humility of a witness. Okay. So which means he creates a story. He sets the boundaries. I just follow.
Good morning,
Who's
sir.
got the mic? Where?
Mike is at the back there.
No.
Good morning, sir.
Oh, wow. How old are you, man?
I'm in 10th class.
In 10th grade. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm a fan of yours, truly.
Okay.
So,
Thank
I'm
you.
Gunjan Pandey from SPS Bhopal. And I wanted to ask you that in your third book, how did you come up with the idea of representing the Devi Astra with somewhat
Whoa.
the atomic bomb?
What? How many of you haven't read the third book out here?
Yeah, no plot spoilers, please.
Yeah, shame on you guys. There are books available in the store out there.
Yes.
Go buy them and stand in
Amish
the
will be
corner and write
signing
100
after
times.
that.
I will buy the Vahiputra book and read it. Okay, no. Okay. Sorry, I can't. I'll have to be a little careful in how I answer it because it might spoil it for those who haven't read the book. But all I want to say is, if you look in our past, even in the Mahabharata, for example, there is a description of a weapon called the Brahmastra. And if you read the descriptions of the effects of the Brahmas, it sounds eerily like a nuclear bomb. I have a theory. We believe that the modern age, we're the apogee of human civilization, we're the highest there's ever been. And I have a theory that how about if we believe that maybe our ancients weren't such idiots after all. Maybe they were smart as well. Not just in India, I'm saying across the world. Ancient Greeks, ancient Egyptians, ancient Chinese, ancient Indians. How about if we approach it from a perspective that maybe they were smart as well? And maybe they didn't develop the technologies that we did, but maybe they developed some other technologies. If we approach it from that perspective and try and read the documents that they've left behind for us, maybe our interpretations would be different. Many times these interpretations are just dismissed because we just assume, oh, they lived 4,000 years ago, what the hell would they know? So that's the approach that I have in my book. Let's approach our ancestors with a little bit of respect.
Agreed, because here we are 4,000 years later, and what the hell do we know?
Hello, Mr. Amish.
Hi.
This is Sastri from Jaipur.
Hi, sir.
I had a chance to go through many of the religions and interacting with the people. The thing I gather is that Hinduism is not a religion. It is a philosophy, because religion means that there will be followers. Philosophy means it is integration of ideas. How do you react to this statement?
Interesting. I have a theory in my book which I have spoken of, that there are two groups of most ways of life, most philosophies can be classified into two groups, the masculine and the feminine. It has nothing to do with men and women, it's about a different way of life. The masculine way of life is a life of laws, a life of order, where the followers are compliant. They follow the laws that have been set up either by God or by great leaders in the past. And there is the feminine way of life, which is a life of probability, where even if there are laws, they are adjustable. It's a life driven by passion, by freedom. And most ways of life can be classified into one of these two. And it's equally so with religions as well. I think Hinduism, the way it exists today, is a life of passion and freedom actually. It's a feminine way of life. Like I said, it has nothing to do with men and women, it's about a way of life. But Lord Ram's way within Hinduism is a masculine way of life. Islam is a masculine way of life. The Western world, the way it exists today, is actually a feminine way of life. And if you approach religions from this perspective, you might find a bit of a mind shift, because I would, since you're interested in religions, I would strongly advise read into the philosophies of the ancient Egyptian religion, which was called chemism, and the ancient Greek religions. They are also actually a more a feminine way of life. If you read the myths of Mahat, for example, they are deeply philosophical, but they leave interpretations to you. A feminine way of life essentially leaves interpretations to the followers. You figure out your own way. The philosophy just kind of sets out guidelines and thought starters for you. Whereas the masculine way of life tells you laws, and you follow them for a better way of life. Neither way of life is better or worse. They're just two different ways of life. It's up to you which path you want to follow. Thank you. Okay. टेक्निकल रुकावट के लिए खेद है.
Hi Amish,
Hi.
my name is Monica.
Hi,
I'm so
Monica.
happy to see you.
Thank
I'm
you.
from also from Mumbai.
Oh, okay.
And my question is, you said ki third point, you should market it well. I wanted to know how did you market your book from the starting point?
My first book was rejected by every publisher it was sent to, so it was actually quasi self-published. My agent is Anuj here? Anuj?
He's there, I can
Where?
see him. Yeah.
Yeah, now that's a magic man out there,
Give
Anuj
Bari
Bari.
a big hand,
Yeah,
because
you should give him a big hand. The only one outside my family, who supported me when no one else was supporting me was Anuj Bari right there. And we actually launched the book ourselves. Anuj invested in the printing, I invested in the marketing. And actually that ended up being a blessing in disguise, because there were no publishers telling us that, oh, this is the way it has always been done in publishing, so we should do it this way. That's the most irritating line in the world, that don't try something new because it has never been tried before. I mean, like, if it's new, obviously it's not been tried before. So we didn't have anyone telling us that, which gave us the freedom to try a lot of different things. So some of the things that we did was, this idea was from my wife, Preeti, actually, that she said, why don't we distribute the first chapter of the book free of cost? From what I'd been told, apparently this had never been tried before. What we did was we printed the first chapter with the same cover as the book, and I went and made PowerPoint presentations to various chain stores. They told me they'd never seen an author. This was in early 2010, I think. They said they'd never seen an author come with a PowerPoint presentation, so they just agreed to what I suggested. And I told them that, can you just distribute these copies free of cost, okay, the first chapter. And what they did was they displayed because they thought it's free, so they displayed it at the cash counter. Now think about the impact of this, okay. If you're a debut author, your first book is usually a well-kept secret in the store. Forget about the readers, even the store staff won't know your book has been launched. And here I was, a debut author, and in effect, my first chapter was being displayed at a prime display space, the cash counter. When the customer is waiting for his bill, he sees something out there, free is stamped on it. So many of them just picked it up, went home, read the first chapter, and came back and said, okay, where's the book? So this works really well for us. And the main thing is you got to try a new idea. Today, if you go to a bookstore and say, I want to distribute my first chapter free of cost, they'll charge you display space, right? At that time, this idea had never been tried before, so they just gave it to me free of cost as well. So you need to try different ideas. That's the main point. The second thing that we did was we made a trailer film. This was an idea from a friend of mine. From what I'd been told, apparently it had never been tried before, a trailer film for a book. And we made a proper live action trailer film, not animation. We shot a model against chroma. We had music made by Tawfiq Qureshi ji, and we uploaded the trailer on YouTube, and it ended up gathering, I think, 100,000 views in a few weeks, and that really pushed the sale of the book quite a lot. Key thing is to try different things. It's not about the money, it's about the ideas. Hi.
Good afternoon, Mr. Tripathi. I'm Abhilasha from Delhi.
Hi, Vilasha.
Hi. I'd just like to ask one thing. In your books, the matrimonial alliances in the book that are made are based out of love, compassion, and friendship for each other, and they face so many hardships in the form of different tribes, different social standings, and even a long-lasting oath of celibacy. And they still go past all of that and marry each other. And yet, in today's society, even today, marriages based on love and companionship are looked down upon if they're not from the same tribe, not from the same caste, not from the same religion, not from the same country. And often they're even punished for even thinking in such a way. What are your views on this? Do you think it's because of religious and traditional beliefs that this is wrong? Or do you think that our religion propagates love and companionship in any way?
You know, it's a very good question, and it's tied into another big issue, which is the status of women. Control over marriage, whom you marry, whom you fall in love with, is in a way control over women, where women are seen as symbols of honor rather than their own person, rather than individual characters, individual people in their own right. Is this what is there in our ancient traditions? Hell no. Okay? Hell no. What is there today is a corruption. In the ancient way, for example, today we are told that women aren't supposed to read the scriptures or do religious ceremonies, which is absolute nonsense. The longest, and many say one of the greatest Upanishads, is the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Okay? The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is a conversation between Maharishi Yajnavalkya, who was a man, and Maharishika Maitreyi, who was a woman. Okay? So the greatest Upanishad is actually a conversation between a man and a woman, and she was a Maharishika, not just any other woman. Okay? We are told that women aren't supposed to marry where they choose to. Go back in the Puranas and our early texts, you will find many cases of this. They'll find that we are told that women aren't supposed to talk back to their husbands when those husbands do something wrong, which is equal nonsense. For example, Abhignana Shakuntalam, which is one of Kalidasa's greatest plays. It's a story of Shakuntala and Dushyant. In Kalidasa's play, by which time societal mores have started changing a little bit, Shakuntala doesn't criticize Dushyant as aggressively in Kalidasa's play. Okay? But if you read the Mahabharata, which was written earlier, boss, there's no politeness around how Shakuntala talks. She rips Dushyant to shreds, okay, for what she's done. Right? The way women are treated today, the way love is approached today, is a corruption of our ancient way of life. And even the mixture between castes, that apparently is not allowed, this is also a corruption of our ancient way of life. And don't just go by the text, go by the Genome Project. I'm sure you're aware there's a massive project done amongst to study various different genetic groups, okay, and see relations between them. And it covered the entire world, covered India as well. And the Genome Project, look, it's not like history, which is frankly not a science really. It's the Genome Project is science. It's right and wrong. There are no interpretations about it. The Genome Project has brought out very clearly that in India, different groups were mixing with each other very freely, which means mixing with each other means what? Which means that the child was born out of a mother and a father who were from different groups. This process started declining somewhere between the 1st century BC and the 1st century AD. Now, God knows what happened in that period. That needs to be researched. Okay? Somewhere between that phase, this process declined. After that, the mixture of genes between different groups really collapsed. Groups became much more endogamous, okay, that they would marry only within each other, which means so-called caste groups. Actually, the term caste itself is wrong. Varna was a class system, not a caste system, but anyway, that's a separate thing. But so-called caste groups stopped intermarrying. Okay? So actually in the traditional way, intermarriages was the natural way of life. Okay? So what we have today of the oppression of women, of stopping intermarriage between different castes, between different groups, between different religions, is a corruption of our ancient way of life. It's not our traditional way. So I always tell all of you guys, you want to marry the person you love, go ahead and do it. You're not being less Indian, you're being more Indian.
I think there's a question here.
Good morning, Amish.
Here. Okay.
Hi, I'm Saksham. It's amazing to be standing here in front of you.
Hi Saksham, thank you.
I wanted to ask you two things. First of all, your novel is a lot to do with the philosophy of evil. Do you think it is possible that evil can be dispensed with permanently, or do you think it will keep arising again and again and perhaps teach us new things? Second, I wanted to ask, do you believe that the philosophy of karma is actually a scientific phenomenon that has only not been proven yet?
Yeah, good question. How old are you, man? Good philosophical questions. Good philosophical questions. Okay. Evil. Look, we are told that God is against evil, right? So why the hell does evil not get destroyed if God has destroyed it, right? Why does it keep rising again and again? And the only thought I want to leave with you is that evil also rises because it serves a purpose. If I say anything more, I might spoil for those who haven't read the third book. Shame on you guys.
You're all going to be reading this after the event.
But what I would suggest, if you're interested in philosophies, read some of our Upanishads, also read especially some of the ancient Egyptian philosophies, where it was described that God is actually in balance. When you understand that concept, you understand the interplay of good and evil very easily. It kind of fits into place. Okay.
That's such a good question.
But a damn good question. I wish I could answer you in more detail, but there are some people who haven't read the third book. But essentially understand that point, that God is in balance. Okay, God doesn't pick sides. The ekam, in the Vedas, the one God, the Nirgun Nirakar formless God, is described as ekam, the one. He doesn't pick sides. He can never pick sides. How can he pick sides? Everyone is his, and he is in balance, which is why he is shunya and infinity at the same time. Okay. That's why he is nothing and everything at the same time. That's not just wordplay, it's a deep philosophical thought when you start understanding that God is in balance. And then you'll also understand why God many times was described as a circle, because it doesn't have a beginning, doesn't have an end, it's the perfect geometric figure. It's shunya and infinite at the same time. Possibly that's all I can tell you, but read up a bit more on the Upanishads. Trust me, you'll love it. What is the second question on karma? Okay. Yeah,
After
karma.
that, can you please give
the funda is, can one prove it? No. Does it help explain many things that happen? There are questions which trouble all of us. Why, and especially a question like, why do bad things happen to good people? And conversely, why do good? And how do you make sense of this? Why do you get a blessing which you think you don't really deserve? As I have got, with my books. How do you explain this? Now, one can have various theories which explain the facts as you see it today. Now, in a way, what you see in science is also the same. The standard model to describe the universe, that there was a Big Bang, blah blah blah, the entire the models that's described to us. It's a theory which explains the facts as we see it today. Okay, like if you look deep into space, the color that dominates, besides black of course, is red. Okay, now there is a theory that we are told of why we see red. It's a concept called redshift. When light travels, the universe is expanding. So when it expands, the light wave also expands with it. When the light wave expands, what happens? The wavelength goes up and the frequency comes down, right? Yeah. Now 7th standard, science class is if the wavelength goes up and the frequency comes down, it shifts more towards red, right? You know the Vibgyor color spectrum, right? Red has a higher wavelength. So therefore, as light expands, stretches, it actually appears more and more red. There's a concept called redshift. Now this is a theory to explain what we see today. Could a better theory come up 20 years later? Yeah, possible. Correct. So science is, in a way, especially physics, especially theoretical physics, essentially builds theories to explain facts as we see it today. Now you can approach karma from the same perspective. It's a theory which explains facts as we see it today. Does it actually make sense with the facts that you see it? I think it does. Correct. Are there better theories available? I haven't seen any, but maybe a better theory could come up. But until that, this theory makes sense to me. I don't know if that answer makes sense to you. Like we believe in Big Bang as well because it's a theory which explains facts as we see it today. Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Whoever has the mic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Dude,
okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Big fan. I actually had a question
I
about.
hope you're standing on something stable.
Yeah. It's okay. It's okay.
And
It's
what's
okay.
your name?
My name is Chinmay. I'm from Delhi. Yeah, I actually have a question. Out of all the twists you could have chosen, you chose to make Shiva human. Shivaji. Yeah. Why did you choose that? What was your train of thought when you were choosing that?
There are various concepts of God, of the philosophy of God in the traditional Indian way. There is the Nirgun Nirakar concept where God is formless. Like I said, the Ekam, or in ancient times it was called Brahman, also not the caste Brahman, but Brahman. It's a different concept. It's kind of similar. It's like a force that exists across the universe. Okay, and this one formless God, he never took sides. His existence allowed our existence. Okay, that was the concept. There's a second concept of an Akar concept of God, where God takes an anthropomorphical form, a human form, so that he can come closer to us, like Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu, Lord Brahma, Shaktima. There's a third concept of God called the Avatar concept of God, where God is born as a human being, completes his karma, dies and goes back up. Okay, like Lord Krishna, Lord Ram. And there is a fourth concept of God, where a man becomes a God, okay, where there is this belief that God exists in every single one of us, and all we have to do is discover that God within. This concept also exists. Now, I find this concept very inspiring. Like I said, I'm essentially a rebel by nature. So for me, a concept that God lives within us, and all we have to do is discover Him, is much more inspiring than this belief that, oh, we are these, kira makodas and someone up there is going to help us. And I found this concept inspiring, and maybe that's how it emerged in the book. Hi.
Hello, sir. I'm Christy.
Amish. Okay.
I'm Christy from Sagar School.
Hi, Christy.
And sir, I loved your books, the way how you transformed Lord Shiva into immortal. Sir, in your book, there's an idea that no one is wrong. It's just that people have different perspectives. So, sir, according to that, there will be no rights and wrongs in this world. So, what is your opinion about it?
My God, all the philosophical questions come from the kids, man. Smart guys. India's future is good. Okay. Okay, this right and wrong has, one can debate it till the cows come home. Okay. I was in England recently. I'd gone for a festival out there, and I spoke. Yeah, Neil, what happened? Okay. I spoke to the British out there on Winston Churchill, and one can completely understand that for the British, Winston Churchill is a hero, right? Because he fought for them. He when they were being attacked by the Nazis, so they see him as one of the greatest men of the 20th century, because they see him as someone who defended freedom, okay, as a way of life. Okay. Are they right from their own perspective? Yes, perhaps. You can understand a British guy thinking that way. What would the perspective of us Indians be? Except for a tiny, group in India which is more loyal to England than India, vast majority of us think of Winston Churchill as frankly a monster, correct? Because he was racist, he was deeply racist. He personally drove a scorched earth policy when the Japanese were attacking India from the east, which led to the death of 2 million of our fellow Indians in the Great Bengal famine in the early 40s, right? The French don't like Winston Churchill much as well. You know, there was a port in Algeria which the Germans were about to capture, and that meant that they would have taken over a large part of the French Navy, which would have helped their war effort. And there were French soldiers in there. Winston Churchill did the logical thing. He bombed that place himself, killed many French people, but destroyed those ships. So the Germans couldn't lay their hands on it. So the French don't much like Winston Churchill either. So we don't like him. The French don't think of him as a monster, but they don't like him. Most Indians think of him as a monster, correct? Now who's right? Are we right or are the British right? Or do they have a right to their opinion? Because for them he was a hero. And we have a right to our opinion because for us, frankly, he was a monster. Now, what's right and wrong, right? It depends on your perspective. Now, there are some things which are clearly wrong, which you should not be doing, okay? You can set your moral compass on that. Because remember, the theory of karma is you will carry the sins that you do. And you will carry the good that you do as well, right? But many times in judgment of right and wrong, it can depend on your perspective.
Yeah, thank you. I've just been told that we don't have any more time for questions.
All right.
But Amish will be signing books after the event. So for those of you who haven't yet bought his new book, you can go to the festival bookshop and continue the conversation with him. But please keep it short because I'm sure lots of people will want to come and talk to you while you're signing the book. And I think there's some housekeeping questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Amish. This was really a wonderful session. And it was wonderful to see the young readers having their books in their hand and asking questions, intelligent questions. Thank you, Amish. Lovely to have you.